Hey guys, this is my ear stretching timeline, which is going to be the first of my series of a video on each of my piercing experiences. I am at A0 right now, and my hair's being difficult, and I don't intend to go any bigger, and if I do, I won't go any bigger than probably a 00, because I don't want to go past the point of no return. Because I know that probably when I'm 90, I won't want to have earlobes down on my shoulders. I first started stretching, I'd say about end of grade 8, beginning of grade 9. I'd had my first holes pierced since I was in grade 1. So they were pretty stretched from wearing heavy earrings over the years and being pulled, of course, because I was a little kid. They were always catching on things. And stuff like that. They were already, like, stretched. So I wore tongue rings in my ears for the longest time. It was, like, the cool thing to do or whatever. And at the time, I thought the stretching was absolutely disgusting and I would never do it and blah, blah, blah. Like most people start out thinking when they end up stretching. But I did think it was gross, and I didn't want to ever do it. And I ended up, when my friend came to visit me from Florida, I decided to buy 14 gauge tapers because I thought tapers were cute and that they would be the same size. So I put them in. And then a couple weeks later, I bought 10 gauges. And yes, I switched from a 10 to a 12 because they were quite, like, the 14s were quite loose, and I figured that skipping one size when they were that loose wouldn't be a big deal. And I don't recommend doing that because it's not necessarily good for you. But with the smaller sizes, I don't think it's as bad. But not that I'm endorsing it in any ways. I should not have skipped, but I did. And I ended up not getting any blowouts or anything. I was lucky. And they slid right in like butter with like a tiny little bit of like discomfort and a bit of burning. But I didn't have to force them at all. They just went in. And then a few weeks after that, I went to 6. And then a month or two later, I went to an 8. And between and sorry, 8 and then 6, that's what I meant. But between a 6 and a 4, I waited about, I don't know, a couple months. I kind of forgot about stretching. And, you know, I was kind of satisfied at the time with what they were like and everything. So I didn't stretch to a 4 for a while. But then I did. And they went pretty easy. And then just like 2 or 3 weeks later, I decided to stretch to a 2. And that was probably the most painful stretch I've ever done. I ended up not being able to push the taper all the way through on one ear, on my right ear. I had to wait a couple of days, and then a couple days later when I took a shower, I was drying off my hair and stuff, and I accidentally hit it with the edge of the towel, and it just popped right all the way, the rest of the way through, and I didn't blow out or anything. They were pretty damn sore, and a couple weeks later, I decided to stretch to a 0, and because 2 gauge was originally my goal size, like I didn't want to go any bigger than that, but I decided to go to a 0. So what I did was I bought tapers, just acrylic, whatever, because I actually bought plugs this time, which I usually didn't. I just wore the tapers because I knew to be stretching up but not staying at that size, so there wasn't any point spending the extra money on the jewelry. And the tapers that I used to buy did come with like little thingies. Here, I'll show you. But my earlobes are a little bit thick, and they would never fit. It's like this, like the O-rings, and it's just like, it's not a plug, but it's like a flat thingy. And they used to come with those, but I never used them. I just kept the tapers in. And then when I got to a 4, they came with these little plugs, but they were too my earlobes a little bit thick, and they wouldn't fit. Like if I tried to screw the back on, it would like pinch my ear, and it would be very uncomfortable because they were too small, and my ears weren't swollen at all. So I decided to just forgo using those altogether. And then when I was stretching to 0, I bought these stupid little things. Silicone! Figuring that I would be able to get them in. And because they have quite a big flare on the ends of them, I couldn't get them in. With the tapers and everything, but so I went and I had left the tapers in for a while, but from a 2 to a 0 was probably the most stressful and the most difficult stretch. What I ended up doing was buying bio oil, which I decided to try because I'd never used it before, and I'm in love with this stuff. It literally made my ears heal to a 0 in, like, I don't know, a quarter to half of the time that it normally did. There was like no swelling and no pain. I use it as lube when I stretch. I just, because it's got this little hole at the top. I don't know if you can see it without me spilling it everywhere, but it's got like this little hole, and like, yeah, a little hole. And then I would just stick the end of the taper in and tip it upside down and turn it back over, and then just like wipe the lube up the taper, and it slide right through. It works really well as lube, and it also helps with healing. What I did, I ended up having to use the taping method to get from a 2 to a 0, because it was the 2s looked healed and everything. I know they probably weren't fully through healed, but they weren't red. They were all like normal skin color on the inside and everything. So it's like, okay. And then I stretched. But I tried getting the tape through. I could only get it about halfway through, and then it would not go no matter what I did. So I ended up just taking electrical tape, and at first I did 1 layer around, and they glided right through. And then 2 or 3 days later, I put 2 layers. And that was a little more painful, and this one wouldn't go all the way through. So I ended up just like putting the O-rings on it and leaving it about like 3/4 of the way through. I didn't want to pop the rest of the way through. So then once again, a couple days later, I take a hot shower every day, but a couple days later, once again, I just tapped the end of it and it right through. And so and then like the next day, I was like bio oiling, cleaning, and everything. So I actually took the tapers out, which had like electrical tape wrapped around them, which was a pain in the ass, by the way. I compared the 0 gauge tapers that I had to the taped 2 gauges, and they were about the same size. So I was like, okay, well, instead of having this electrical tape in my ears, because I'm allergic to adhesives, I figured I might as well just pop these in. So I did the thing. I stuck the tapers in the bio oil, tipped it upside down, smeared it up, and I slid it in. It slid right through. And I thought that I'd blown out at first, until I realized that it wasn't close enough to the edge of the hole to be a blowout. Like, it wasn't in the proper place that it should be. And the electrical tape, because it kind of folded at part of it, because it's a taper, it's like this, right? So the tape ends up like bubbling and not like sticking fully. And one of the little bubbly foldy things actually cut my ear, and I was like freaking out, thinking of blown out. And I was like, okay, well, it's just tiny rip or whatever. I don't think I need to downsize, but I looked at pictures and stuff, and I think that like it wasn't actually a blowout. I'm pretty sure that it was just a cut from the tape because it healed within like 24 hours. And it was all good. And then a couple weeks after I'd stretched to 0 with the tapers, actually not even a couple weeks, actually more like a few days to a week, I went and bought new tunnels because I couldn't get those silicone ones in to save my life. And so yeah, that's my stretching timeline so far. I'll probably post a video in the next couple of days here on something else. I'll probably start with my ears and then work through the rest. So